everybody. I am Scott Mesic, a Fortra solutions engineer, and I am going to be going over our GoAnywhere HTTPS listener in a little more detail, as well as our AS2 and AS4 server configuration, which is also part of the HTTPS listener. So I am a solutions engineer covering a few different solutions. One is our email security solutions, our content scanning engine for GoAnywhere, as well as GoAnywhere itself. So at a very high level, I'm going to go over our GoAnywhere listeners, basic detail, and I'm going to be doing a deep dive of the HTTPS AS2 and 4 server listener in a little more detail, and then I will provide a demonstration of the HTTPS listener as well. So the listeners themselves, as you can see, we've got everything from FTP to SFTP. We've got GoFast, which is has to do with our expediting file transfers, but we've also got File Catalyst for that as well. Which we won't really talk about in today's presentation, but that's a possibility. Agents for remote sites or locations where you might not have a GoAnywhere infrastructure where you need to distribute data. And then we support PSIT as well. As I mentioned, the HTTPS AS2 and 4 server listener is where we're going to be spending the detail for today's session. So you can see where you can manage this configuration in the GoAnywhere administration console. We also, I'll speak very briefly about resources. So listeners provide connection points for people and systems to connect into your GoAnywhere infrastructure. And then resources are used to make connections to other environments, whether they be inside your environment or outside of your environment. So I'll be at a very high level. I'll go over the HTTPS server resources that you can see here, and I'll also spend a little bit of time talking about the AS2, 3, and 4 resources. Again, these are connections outbound to other environments, AS2 and 4 server configurations, and then AS3 partners, all in the resources. These can be used within projects in order for you to automate connections to remote configurations. So we'll talk a little bit more about the listener and the resources in a demonstration now. So I'll start with the resources at a very high level. I've got a couple of basic resources defined. So as you can see, within my resources pane in my GoAnywhere administration console, I've got AS2 and AS4 servers. In either one, I can define as many as I want, but you can see you've got your connection algorithms here. You've got certificate management, message encryption, pull and push configurations that you can define here. For the AS4 server, you can route that through a proxy. It could be a GoAnywhere gateway, or it could be another proxy if you've got an exit point that you need to hop through before you leave your environment. And then you've got your AS2 configuration, server configuration. We also support the proxy here. As you can see, I've got my advanced configuration, message signature configuration, message encryption, certificate, authentication. All of these configurations can be managed here. Your key management can either be wrapped in our key vault, or you can put it on the flat file systems for legacy system support. The key wrapper, our key management system, our key vault is much more secure, so we recommend that you use that to store all of your certificates. And so that's your AS2 server and AS4 server configuration. Again, you would use these in projects to connect to remote locations. And then you've got your AS3 partner configuration here as well. So I will navigate into here, and you can see the configuration is fairly basic, but you've got your send and receive configurations. Again, this would typically be defined before you create this resource, and you'd use this resource inside of a project. And then you've got your HTTPS server configuration. So I can add, again, as many as I want. I've got one in my internal environment defined. I've got my connection information here, port configuration. If I wanted to use a proxy, I've got my certificate management here. So basically, again, these are all used, the resources are used inside of projects to connect outside of your GoAnywhere environment. So now, as far as the service listener is concerned, if we move under services into our service manager, you will see that the HTTPS AS2 and 4 listener have been bundled together. If I navigate to the cogwheel and edit that configuration, these are all of my configurations that are available. I've got session timeouts out of the box. This is typically set to no when you build your GoAnywhere environment. You normally would want to start this automatically. You may choose to start it manually as well, kind of up to you, but you could define that there. The web client itself, this is connections into the user interface. You've got some secure folder configuration here. This would be for duplicate files. You've got a number of different configurations if a file exists. You've got a number of different configurations that you can define in here, and then some user interface settings as well. You can provide the forgot password information, and so in this case, if you want users to be able to manage their own passwords, you can provide them with a link in the interface, which I'll show you shortly. As far as the HTTPS listener itself, you can define file upload sizes. You can also control this with a content scanner. We've got a module for that. That's our ICAP gateway. You can manage file extensions here. You can manage file filters here. If someone renames a file and uploads a file, for instance, an executable to a docx, the listener can't do anything about that, but our content scanning engine can identify the real file type based upon the file signature. And then so you've got some other configurations here. Multiple files, when you download them, you can configure this to zip them. That's right here in this configuration, and then it sets the file name if you want to there. Moving on to the AS2 configuration, I don't have mine enabled right now, but you can enable it. You can set message restrictions, kind of, sort of, file restrictions, kind of, sort of like we were just talking about with the HTTPS listener, file names, file filters, sizes, and things along those lines. Similarly, for the AS400, this is where you would enable that. And then you've got some basic settings here as well. And then I've got one recipient defined where you can define configurations here for message security, MDN recipient. So basically, this is where this information is managed. And then you've got port configuration, IP configuration. This is for the HTTPS listener. You've got your certificate management here as well. A lot of these configurations I don't have set right now, but you can define all of these. Branding, you can link this to a specific domain within your GoAnywhere environment. Here's your key management, or I've got my key name here. This is my own key for my web authentication, and where the key is stored inside of the key vault as opposed to the flat file system. And then I can redirect my website if I wanted to as well, excuse me. But as you can see here, here's all of my configuration for the web listener, the AS2 and 4 listener as well. As I had mentioned, you've got some ability to manage your what's presented to users for the web client. So I can do my user provisioning here, and then I've got my forgot password link. You've got this powered by GoAnywhere. I can turn that off or leave that enabled as well. As far as all the branding, this is stored in another configuration, but basically that's all customizable. With that being said, that wraps up the presentation for the HTTPS listener. I've also published some videos for the SFTP listener, cloud connectors, and there's other short videos that I've created as well. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch today's presentation. You can contact your sales rep, you can reach out to our website, or you can contact our support team if you have any questions about anything that I've just presented. Thank you.